In today's video we present the shocking truth behind one of India's most infamous crimes, the Aarushi Talwar murder case. Hello and welcome to this video on the Aarushi Talwar case, a shocking and controversial murder case that gripped India and the world in 2008. Aarushi Talwar was a 14-year-old girl who was found murdered in her bedroom in her family's apartment in Noida, India. Her parents, Rajesh and Nupur Talwar, were initially suspected of the murder, and their subsequent trial and conviction sparked widespread debate and controversy. In this video, we'll explore the background of the case, the investigation, the trial, and the aftermath. The Talwars were a well-educated and respected family in the community. Aarushi's parents, Rajesh and Nupur Talwar, were both dentists who operated a dental clinic from their home in Noida, a suburb of New Delhi. They had moved to Noida in the late 1990s and were active members of the local society. The Talwars were a close-knit family and Aarushi was their only child. Aarushi was a bright and talented student who excelled in her studies and extracurricular activities. She was also an accomplished pianist and had won several competitions. Her parents had high hopes for her and were supportive of her interests and passions. Aarushi was well liked by her peers and teachers, and was known for her outgoing and friendly nature. The Talwars' apartment was located in a gated community with private security, which was considered to be one of the safest areas in Noida. The apartment complex had several amenities, including a swimming pool, a gym, and a clubhouse. The Talwars were one of the few families in the complex to have a live-in domestic servant, Hemraj Banjade, who was originally from Nepal. Prior to the murder, the Talwars had no history of criminal or legal trouble. They were well known in the community for their philanthropic activities and were respected members of the dental profession. On the night of May 15, 2008, Aarushi Talwar was found dead in her bedroom. Her throat had been slit and she had suffered several other injuries. The Talwars initially claimed that an outsider had committed the murder, possibly a servant or a friend of the family. However, the police investigation quickly focused on the Talwars themselves, particularly Rajesh Talwar, who was rumored to have had an extramarital affair and had been seen arguing with his daughter on the night of the murder. The initial findings of the investigation suggested that Hemraj Banjade, the Talwars' domestic servant, was the prime suspect in the case. The police had found his body on the rooftop of the Talwars' apartment the day after Aarushi's murder. Hemraj had also been killed, and his body was found in a decomposed state. The police initially speculated that he had killed Aarushi and fled the scene, but the discovery of his body raised suspicions about his involvement in the crime. However, the investigation took a dramatic turn when the police faced criticism for failing to locate Hemraj's body earlier. The crime scene was not secured properly, and several key pieces of evidence were either tampered with or destroyed. In addition, the police failed to interview several potential witnesses and suspects, and made several critical mistakes in their investigation. During the investigation of the Aarushi Talwar murder case, the police had conducted a drug test on one of the Talwars' domestic servants, Krishna Thadarai, to determine if he was under the influence of narcotics at the time of the murder. The test had reportedly shown positive results for cannabis. Krishna was initially arrested and charged with the murders along with the Talwars, but he later retracted his confession and claimed that he had been coerced by the police into confessing to a crime he did not commit. The defense team for the Talwars argued that Krishna's drug test results were irrelevant to the case, as he had not been present in the house at the time of the murders. They also argued that the test results were inconclusive and unreliable, and that they did not prove anything about Krishna's involvement in the crime. The prosecution, however, used the drug test results to support their theory that the murders were committed under the influence of drugs or alcohol, and that the Talwars and Krishna were involved in the crime. Despite the controversy surrounding the drug test results, they were used as a piece of evidence against the Talwars and Krishna during the trial. However, the Allahabad High Court, in its acquittal of the Talwars, had criticized the prosecution for relying on imperfect evidence and using flawed scientific tests in the case. The investigation was then taken over by the Central Bureau of Investigation, (CBI), which launched a fresh investigation into the case. The CBI conducted several rounds of questioning and forensic examinations, but the investigation was marred by a lack of cooperation from the Talwars and several procedural irregularities. The CBI eventually filed a charge sheet against the Talwars, accusing him of committing the murders. The prosecution's case was based on circumstantial evidence, as there were no eyewitnesses or direct evidence linking the Talwars to the crime. The trial of Rajesh and Nupur Talwar for the murder of their daughter Aarushi and domestic servant Hemraj was one of the most high-profile criminal cases in recent Indian history. The trial began in April 2010 and lasted for more than 4 years, during which time the Talwars vigorously defended their innocence. The prosecution's case against the Talwars was based primarily on circumstantial evidence, as there were no eyewitnesses to the crime. The prosecution argued that Rajesh Talwar had killed Aarushi and Hemraj in a fit of rage after finding them in a compromising position. They alleged that Nupur Talwar had helped Rajesh cover up the crime. The prosecution presented a number of pieces of circumstantial evidence to support their case. They pointed to the fact that the Talwars were the only people present in the house at the time of the murders, and that Rajesh Talwar had a history of violence and was known to be hot-tempered. They also presented forensic evidence, including bloodstains on the Talwars' clothes and walls, and alleged that the Talwars had tampered with the crime scene. The Talwars, however, maintained their innocence throughout the trial. They argued that they were asleep in their bedroom at the time of the murders, and that they had nothing to do with the crime. They also pointed out several inconsistencies and errors in the investigation, and argued that the prosecution's case was based on speculation and conjecture. The trial was marked by several twists and turns, and was fraught with controversy and drama. There were several instances of witness tampering and procedural irregularities, which raised questions about the quality of the investigation and the fairness of the trial. There were also several changes in the prosecution team, which further fueled speculation about the case. The trial was conducted in a special court in Ghaziabad, and was presided over by Judge Shyam Lal. The trial lasted for more than 4 years, during which time the court heard testimony from more than 140 witnesses and examined a vast amount of forensic evidence. In November 2013, the court finally delivered its verdict. The Talwars were found guilty of murder and sentenced to life imprisonment. The verdict was met with widespread controversy and criticism, with many people expressing doubts about the prosecution's case and the quality of the investigation. The Talwars immediately appealed the verdict to the Allahabad High Court. The High Court heard the case over a period of several months, and examined the evidence in detail. In October 2017, the High Court finally delivered its verdict. The Talwars were acquitted of all charges, and the court criticized the prosecution and the investigation for a lack of evidence and procedural irregularities. The Talwars were finally cleared of all charges after nearly a decade of legal battles. The case remains one of the most controversial and widely discussed criminal cases in Indian history, and has raised important questions about the quality of India's criminal justice system. The Aarushi Talwar murder case has been extensively covered by the media and is widely known in India and beyond. However, there are still some lesser-known details about the case that are worth exploring. The murder weapon, the exact murder weapon used in the crime, has never been found. The prosecution argued that it was a surgical scalpel, which was supposedly missing from the Talwars' house, but the defense team contested this claim and pointed out that there was no conclusive evidence to prove that a scalpel had been used in the crime. The internet activity on the night of the murder, there were reports that someone had accessed the internet on the Talwars' computer on the night of the murder. However, the police did not investigate this angle thoroughly, and it remains unclear who accessed the internet and for what purpose. The role of the media, the case received extensive media coverage, with several news channels and newspapers reporting on the investigation and trial. However, there were allegations that the media had sensationalized the case and had even influenced the investigation and trial in some ways. The impact on the Talwars, the murder case had a devastating impact on the Talwar family, who had to endure years of trial and media scrutiny. Rajesh and Nupur Talwar were eventually acquitted, but the case had taken a toll on their personal and professional lives. In a recent interview, Nupur Talwar spoke about the emotional trauma that she and her family had experienced during the trial. These details add to the complexity and mystery of the Aarushi Talwar case and demonstrate the need for a thorough and impartial investigation in criminal cases. The Aarushi Talwar case remains a controversial and tragic chapter in Indian history. The murder of a young girl, the accusations against her parents, and the long and complicated trial and appeals process have left many unanswered questions and unresolved emotions. The case also raises important issues about the Indian criminal justice system, the role of the media in shaping public opinion, and the impact of high-profile cases on society. We hope this video has provided you with a deeper understanding of this complex and challenging case. Thank you for watching. Please do leave a like on this video and subscribe if you enjoyed.